You know, the Nintendo DS was a funny little console, wasn't it? If you were to describe its biggest hits to someone, you'd probably be talking about games like Mario Kart, Nintendogs, Cooking Mama. Yeah, you kinda get the vibe. It was colourful, family-friendly, and had this cutesy, approachable charm that made it easy to pick up and play. And yet, right in the middle of this world of puppies and pastries, came Dementium the Ward, a horror game so disturbing and intense that it somehow transformed the DS from a happy-go-lucky handheld into a haunted little box of no. Imagine it. You're sitting there, stylus in hand, expecting to let's-a go, and then boom, you're plunged into an abandoned hospital surrounded by monsters, low lighting, and a soundtrack designed to make you piss your pants. God, I'm glad I stumbled across this one. Dementium didn't just do horror well for the DS. It did horror in a way that just genuinely worked full stop. So let's take a look at how it pulled it off. We'll explore the game itself, its story, and why it managed to carve out a unique little corner in DS history as a surprisingly legit horror experience. So, let's set the scene. It's 2007 and the Nintendo DS is known for being the family-friendly, even your nan will want one kind of console. I mean, the fact that Nintendo ads had gone from an exploding fat guy to Beyonce just chilling on a couch tells you everything you need to know about the vibes they were shifting to. But then out of nowhere comes this tiny indie teen called Renegade Kid, saying, you know what, people aren't traumatized enough these days, let's do that. And boy, they went for it. And just another little bit of history from this time. The Mist hit cinemas like 3 weeks after Dementium dropped. And boy is the ending of that film pretty traumatizing. Oh, what a fun few weeks that must have been. But anyway, Dementium was their big experiment. A survival horror game with a first-person perspective, terrifying enemies, and a hospital setting straight out of a haunted fever dream. So, if you're thinking this all sounds quite ambitious, yep, you'd be right. After all, the DS wasn't exactly set up for horror. It had a tiny screen, minimal processing power, and let's be honest, a stylus. Not exactly the recipe for immersive horror, but somehow, against all of these odds, Dementium made it work. And not just work, it became pretty much the scariest game you could play on the DS. No small feat, considering this was a console better known for making us blow into a microphone to clear dust off ancient artifacts in Zelda. So, what's it all about? Dementium starts with our protagonist waking up in an abandoned hospital. The walls are stained, lights flicker ominously, and every corridor seems to stretch out into pitch black nothingness. Your character has no idea why they're there, or what exactly has gone wrong. As you stumble through the game's levels, you start to piece together a few disturbing clues. The hospital, for one, turns out it's not just a normal old hospital. It's got one hell of a history, one that involves experimentation, insanity, and creatures that look like they've been stripped straight from a death metal album cover. Each new room you enter is another breadcrumb leading you deeper into the story. A horror tale that's unsettling in all the right ways because it never fully explains itself. There's no grand exposition scene, no moment where someone in a lab coat hands you a "here's what happened" brochure. It's just you, your flashlight, and a growing sense that you're probably not going to get out of here in one piece. Seriously, you can finish the game and still be wondering if any of it was real. Is the hospital really haunted? Or is your character experiencing some psychological breakdown? Are the creatures even there? Or are they a manifestation of something your character's trying to repress? By the end, you're still left hanging, which for some horror fans will be exactly what they're looking for. Not every story needs a neat ending, and Dementium really embraces that ambiguity. It's a story about fear, isolation, and the mind's ability to create monsters. And the lack of concrete answers just adds to that experience. People have come up with all sorts of theories over the years. Some think it's a metaphor for mental illness, while others argue that it's just a straightforward supernatural horror, with a hospital just being a really cursed place. Then there's the theory that Dementium is just one big hallucination, and that your character has been trapped in a horrific dream state this entire time. And honestly, it's quite nice having a story that's so open to interpretation. The game's soundscape is loaded with unsettling noises. Faint footsteps echoing in empty hallways, distant screams that make you wonder if you're really actually alone. And that kind of eerie silence that leaves you listening, almost expecting something to jump out. They really made the most of the DS's limitations, knowing that sometimes less is more in horror. Instead of drowning you in constant noise, they let silence do the heavy lifting. It genuinely makes it hard to play when you're home alone. Mind you, I am also a big baby, so, maybe that's something to do with it, I don't know. But even if you're not a big baby like me, did Dementium succeed in being scary? Well, yeah, you saw the title of the video, right? And it's not because it relied on the gore or throwing in jump scares every 2 seconds. Dementium succeeded because it took its time. The horror here is slow, atmospheric, and psychological. Sure, there are monsters, but none of them are revolutionary or iconic. No, what really sticks with you is the constant sense of dread as you wander through the hospital. Like I mentioned before, the sound design in Dementium is stellar, especially considering it's on the DS. The noises are sparse but impactful. You'll be walking through a hallway, minding your own business, and then you hear something. A scratch, a moan, maybe even just the hum of 40 fluorescent lights, and suddenly, you're on edge. It's the kind of sound design that builds a sense of tension and dread using very little, and that's where the horror really shines. Visually, Dementium is a grungy, low-lit experience that uses the hospital setting to its full advantage. The hallways feel endless, claustrophobic, and downright filthy. Each room looks lived in, yet abandoned, as if something went horribly wrong and everyone just left. For a game on the DS, it's impressive how much atmosphere they managed to squeeze out of a handheld with limited graphic capabilities. Sure, the monsters might look a bit pixelated now, but back then, those were some seriously disturbing designs. Fortunately, I found out that there's actually a remaster on the Nintendo Switch, something I wish I'd known before forking out a ton of cash on a DS copy. Either way, the remaster helps to make the graphics and controls a lot more palatable for a modern audience. Part of what makes this game so tense is that it's quintessential survival horror. You're not swimming in ammo, and health is often pretty scarce. Every encounter has a cost. A bullet here, some health there, and it won't be long before you're butt-clenchingly unprepared for what's coming next. This isn't a game you can just power through. You really have to pick your battles, balancing tactics with some moments of proper panic. Now let's be fair, Dementium isn't quite perfect, but it's a horror game on the DS. What were you expecting? The gameplay does have some clunky moments. Combat is a little stiff, the puzzles can be a bit repetitive, and aiming with a stylus is like steering a car with chopsticks, especially when you're trying to fend off something that really wants you dead. But in a way, these flaws almost work in the game's favour. A little awkwardness can go a long way in the right circumstances. Believe me, that's basically my entire style. You feel vulnerable, even a little clumsy, and in a game like this, that's not a bug. That's a feature. Dementium the Ward didn't just add horror to the DS library, it kicked open the door for indie studios to explore darker, weirder themes on handheld consoles. If you're a fan of horror games, Dementium is absolutely worth revisiting. Even if the graphics do look a little dated by today's standards, this isn't just about jump scares or the creepy monsters. It's about a genuine horror experience that doesn't rely on big budget tricks. It's unsettling, it's strange, and most importantly, it's a reminder that horror doesn't need to be flashy to be effective. This is a true hidden gem for anyone that wants something a little darker, a little grittier, and a lot more unsettling than your typical DS fare. Obviously check out the remaster on modern consoles for the definitive experience, but if you can grab a copy for the DS, it's worth checking out just to see how special it was when it first came out. But what did you think of Dementium the Ward? Did you play it back in the day, or are you interested in checking it out? Please let me know in the comments below, I would love to read your thoughts. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe for plenty more on all things gaming. Check out our movie channel, UDS Films, and you can always visit upsidedownshark.com to keep up with everything else we've got going on. Until then, my name is Tom, this has been UDS, and we'll see you next time. Bye!